This is kind of the, what do you call it? The kind of the, it covers all the bases as far as these practices go. So since I don't teach so often to the Auburn community, this is, I got to, there's a sutta called the All, and it's where the Buddhist says, I'm going to teach you the All. So this is not that, but it has all of it in there. So it's basically just to kind of iterate some of the pieces here. There is, it's really, from these teachings, it's impermanence, it's about the body, it's about how we get caught in our views and opinions. And then there is that identity of self. And ultimately, there is this, awareness that I'll talk about. So these are all, they're all kind of my favorite subjects. I'll start with one of my poems out of my poetry book here, The Scuffed Up Shoes, that I would like to read you. It's called Mindfulness. Where was I? Dancing on some distant past, hoping, believing in this reminiscing could ultimately change the past and empower the future magically. Oh no, there I am messing with my life again, giving myself a headache, believing in this ultimate solution. What kind of balderdash is this? Knowing somehow this is not the practice. A tiger chasing its tail, going into mental circles endlessly, trying to outthink my own thinking. How much simpler could it be? Letting go of one's thought constructions, mindful of this holy presence, weaving forgetfulness with this remembering. Suddenly, these little baby turkey chicks weave themselves through the windy tall grass, illuminating the joy of the one who is fully present, having known what to do all along, yielding everything to the present. So, liberation through letting go. So, I mean, in some ways you could say, what is this? That somehow, could we just get it right? And in some ways, this practice is saying, you're not going to get it right. You can get it, but you aren't going to get it right. And so the first fundamental, again, this is, you've heard it all before, you know it, but it is so imperative, this first piece of the world of impermanence. And somehow, it's really a challenge to actually teach ourselves that somehow that our world, all your senses, everything sort of is identifying things and kind of concretizing, make them into things. It's a table, it's a chair, it's a this, that. And we're always in constant caught in labeling those things, and then we take it right to people, so-and-so. And here is this truth about things, and the only way, you can find it in the outside world in watching nature, say through the seasons, and watching it, which is a wonderful way of kind of learning this, is just, that in the spring, the bud kind of opens, and then it kind of makes its way through the summer and possibly flowers, and then fall comes and it turns brown and it dies. And so in that we kind of see the truth in the natural world around us. But there's also happening inside of you, and it's really where this insight practice is really helpful, because suddenly we can learn it from the outside, but we can also learn it from the inside. And the practice is specifically telling us somehow that if you can begin to get how nothing stays the same. Everything is in constant flux. And so it's just like, going to that body scan I did, which I did kind of slow today. One of the marvelous things about it is that you're putting attention on something that seems solid and kind of identifiable. And yet, what is it? What is it you experience? Is there any moment that it's not in flux or in change? So in that way, it is one of the great teachers when we can slow ourselves down enough to actually recognize its function. And it's not that it's either good or bad. It's just that the truth of it is that it is, it's sort of like watching a river. You can never kind of put your hand back in the same river. The same way you can't put that awareness or that mindfulness in the same body 2 times. It's always something different. And yet, in some sense, it appears, and that's the problem, it appears as something that is solid and not changing. So, and that's kind of the relative mind does that. So it's okay. It's just the way we kind of work with it and play with it. So that's just one piece, and there's so much to say about that, but all I can say is, from my own practice is that I realize that my belief system is based on that things are solid. And if I really study what's happening, then I begin to see the impermanence of it. When I see the impermanence of it, I see one of the great fundamentals here. And I said, liberation through letting go. So suddenly by seeing the truth of things, then there is a natural letting go. So the second thing, I'm just going to go through these and then we'll see where we go. The second one is the body, which is a lot of times in the tradition, we use this language of the 5 aggregates or 5 streams or 5 heaps. And what it is that these are just a way of taking what we know as our kind of composite and kind of naming it as parts. And so obviously there is material form, which is actually our body. There is the truth that if you have a body, you also have a thing called feeling. So you have pleasant, unpleasant, and non-unpleasant, non-unpleasant. So there is a feeling. And then there is, it's called sana. It's in some ways, one of the words is perception or recognition or memory or noting the quality of things. And so this is our ability without putting anything on it to notice something, okay? And it's actually it's happening so fast that a lot of times, but we're not messing with it. It's just pure recognition of things. So perceiving it or Um, Also, that's something we've picked up as human beings, as we have a memory of something and know it's a table or a chair or a body or something. So there's that recognition, but we're not putting anything on it. There's no judgment or anything with it. And then the fourth one, which is really is kind of the crux of it all, is sometimes called volitional formations, or reactions, or proliferations, or emotional skewing of experience, and also you can say it's the intellectual aspect of life. So this is kind of the fourth, but you can't have, that's the thing, you have to have all these pieces, So that fourth aggregate, this mental formations, is usually because we get so lost in our thinking, and with that, we make up the world as we know it, And of course, it comes from some of the perceptions, some of the memory, some of the imprints that have been through our lives, from children, schools, parents. Those imprints come, and then we create things from it, And this is just trying to state some facts, okay? And then the fifth one, which is consciousness, and it is, they say, it is indispensable to all cognitions. So that now all of what I'm talking about is in the impermanent world of body. So this consciousness is something that is arising and passing away at, you could say, at incredible speeds, because it is constantly moving. So it is I always like the description of the candle that, there's karma, the wax, and then there's the candle. And from a distance, you look at it, you go, oh, that's a solid thing. But you get close to it, you see that it is millions of little reignitings going on. And that's really what we are. Our cognition is that the consciousness is reigniting itself every moment until death. And then when we die, then that's pretty much, we don't know what speed it happens, but basically when that candle goes out, then the reigniting of that consciousness no longer exists. So I'm just trying to give you a kind of these aggregates or heaps, or these are just components, and you can't take any component out. It actually, all of them have to be there, and if they're all there, there's a thing called a person, And yes, it's true that that the body, it has certainly, it has a lifespan of its own. There is the Vedana, which is feeling. These are the elements of experience, which then we can take, and they are go from kind of very simple feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, to kind of concretize one's emotions that are also part of our life living, and that there is then there is the recognition or the perception, and then of course then we make stuff up out of it, and that's so much of can I say this, so much of human suffering is we make up things. And the thing is that about the making up, which is fascinating to me, is that, if we have memory, we take a story from the past. And with that story, we make up a reality of who you think you are, you know. And you know, it never takes in all of it. So it's always skewed. It's not actually the truth. It's your truth of what you perceived and your experience to be true. But it's not necessarily true, which is great because that's where that impermanence means, oh, well, maybe I don't have to buy that whoever I am, that's my story, that actually I may be much bigger than that story. And it's only based on a certain amount of truths of experience. So the next piece I wanted to come to, so that's really the kind of these aggregates or heaps or kind of streams that make up, that it's just a way of classifying and breaking it down. Simple, it's kind of simplistic. Is the next piece I want to talk about is this views and opinions. And so suddenly, you know, we begin to take, and we've taken volitional formations and our reactions and our kind of our making up who we think we are, is we see that they are based on these views and opinions. And those views and opinions, a lot of times, first of all, we have to go back to some of their origin, which has to do with your parents, your school, you know, your experiences, and that out of that, those experiences, you've created your view and experience of how things are. There's a lovely thing. This is from the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese. Really, he's saintly, I must say. He's a trip. But do not be bound to any doctrines, theory, or ideology, even Buddhist. All systems are guiding means. They are not absolute truths. Do not think that the knowledge you possess is changeless, absolute truth. Avoid being narrow-minded and bound by present views. Non-attachment from views to be able to receive others' views. Renounce fanaticism and narrowness. And I think all it's really healthy because part of this whole process is somehow, okay, and this is through our own insight and how we think of things, is we sort of concretize and make up a view and opinion about things and think that that's what it is. And really what these practices is doing is asking you, is that true? You know, so there has to be, in a sense, kind of a questioning of the validity of kind of your views and opinions about things. And that, you know, one of the things Ajahn Chah used to say, or Lumpur Chai, you know, it's views, opinions, and judgments that separate us from each other, you know. And it's a big statement because, you know, one of the things is it's so, you know, it's really back to that statement. Would you rather be right or free? You know, and so many people that they want to be right. And so they fight for this view or opinion to be right. And they suffer and they cause others to suffer tremendously for that, you know. And so this is saying, oh, this is going back to the liberation through letting go. That can you let go of your views and opinions about things, and you know, may go to judgment, and that there is a sense of peace and freedom that exists when we can see through them and see them. Oh, that's just from my experience, my view of it, but it doesn't mean it's right. It simply means it's a view, and or it's simply an opinion. So please, this is in a sense is kind of a challenge, because one thing's about views and opinions is we get insights. Oh, now I know. As soon as you know, you have a problem, because it's going to be, in a sense, a kind of view or an opinion. And what practice is really based on is, can I question that? And if I can question that, then, then can I maybe feel or see or experience the world differently, instead of a kind of a contracted way, but a much more kind of open way, or that liberation of letting go. So I know this is a lot tonight, but it's okay. The fourth one, it has to do with, it is the identity of self, and maybe it goes to the views and opinions about being right. But the trick here is that, we kind of believe somehow that we know, and and be right, or whatever. That view is really being right. But there's also just the self itself, that somehow we have to be able to question the simple identity that somehow is separating us from the world we live in. It's interesting, because this is part of the practice of learning here, is that if I can kind of see through my identity, that then suddenly the world is this mysterious, magical place that is no longer, it's not the threat somewhat that it was, but it's actually much more of a mystery. And that we also have the patience to see that that even when things don't seem to be going right, and I know this is kind of a tricky one, but I've seen this in my own life. Sometimes when I think things are going not the way I'd like them, there is some reason behind what is happening, but I can't see it yet. And so in that kind of mystery of this, maybe you could say, not knowing, that is somehow loosening the structure of who and how we think we are. And I must say, it's a challenge, but it's also possible to go from kind of, because one is a kind of contracted, a fear state, I'm not enough, I have to be special, to this other view, which is so different, which is, this isn't about me, this is just part of a collective process that I am, a piece of a puzzle within that. And so I don't put so much identity on the emotional attachment to who and how I am, So there's a lot there in the identity, because it's kind of tricky, but that's okay. The point is, I'm just trying to point it out that I use the word sometimes selfing, that we create this selfing, and that selfing then creates a division, and that division is what separates us from other and from the world we inhabit. So the fifth one I'm going to speak about tonight, probably my favorite, but it's also, these are somewhat in order. And the fifth one is awareness. So right now, there is something when you have to turn kind of the mind around on itself somewhat and notice there's something that's knowing. And that it is, it includes everything. So it is, and that's really the awareness itself. It is that includes everything. It also has the nature that when most people don't understand this, that as soon as that awareness is always married. And I go back to the aggregates. It's married to either the body, or the feeling, or the perception, noting the quality of things, or it's, creating something out of it, some mental formation, and it is being fueled by this life, this consciousness. So it's always married to something. It's married to seeing, it's married to the sense doors, to seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling. And one of the things is that it's also a thing in itself. So it's always in a dualism between the knowing itself and the experience. And from this liberation through letting go is this ability to turn the mind around and notice that there's something that is connected to all that, that's aware of it. And at first it's just simply, we can't separate the experience, whether it's seeing or smelling or hearing or tasting or feeling, we can't separate out from it. But if we work with this, we start, in a sense, kind of break the identity or the dualism of self and object. And so suddenly it becomes that, oh, there is the self that's knowing. And yes, its experience is object, but I'm more interested in what is the awareness. And the awareness itself, in some sense, is something that was never, this is never born, and it's something that doesn't die, but it's something that's always present. It is one of the great gifts of human beings. And it's not something, you can practice for 50 years, which I have been doing that. And the practice itself doesn't mean you're going to be, in a sense, kind of get it or liberated from it. It's not through doing, it's actually through our ability, you could say it's just through releasing and noticing. So we have to release, whether it's seeing or smelling or hearing or tasting. We have to find a way to release that and know that there is the awareness itself that's actually always in relationship to it, but is free of it. It's free of those objects. Those objects are, and this is true, all those objects, seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, they're all defined by sense doors, even the thinking, the mind. They are all part of imminent permanent process that's in the process, I'm sorry to say this, but in the process of disintegration and dying eventually. So, but here is this awareness. And this awareness, actually, if you note the awareness, first of all, it has no age. It's not something that has been subject to age. It is not part of that cyclic process of body and mind. So there is this possibility of beginning to kind of, and it's tricky because you have to release an object, and you can't, they say you can never, only a Buddha could stay for long. So for us, it's much more about learning a little bit how to do it and noticing that what is the feeling that what is the feeling with awareness when it's not married to a sense store and kind of the storyline of those sense stores. Then it's actually something that's already liberated. It was always liberated. So it's not something to achieve, it's something to recognize. Big difference, you know, because one is somehow we practice to get something. And this is saying, no, we don't have to practice to get something. We are something. And that there is this capacity to let go of the object. Now I know this is tricky, it's very tricky. But as you kind of learn how to do this on some level, then one of the beauties of it is that no matter what's going on, there's always this, you know, because it's so expansive, it is actually a place of constant peace. And it has peace as its experience. They also say that, you know, this is something that's there, but because it's always caught in a dual, in the awareness is always married to one of the sense stores and the experience of it, that this has to be pointed out to you. You know, it's not something that you naturally will get or understand. I mean, I'd say maybe a few people, but majority of people, it has to be pointed out to you that, oh, okay, so how am I going to, in a sense, and maybe it's not so much letting go of these objects of experience, but loosening and putting more attention on that knows. In Thai, they use this word yogaru. It's there with the knowing. So we befriend there with the knowing and no longer caught in the objects of experience, but in that knows them. So I hope, you know, this kind of covers a lot of the basis here, and hopefully is helpful. Let's see, I don't know what, we can take a couple questions. I'm going to do a metta, and then I have to turn this over to Jen to do some announcements. And I think there are a few of them tonight. So do you have any questions? If you don't, it's fine. I mean,